Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now. The Los Angeles Dodgers just dropped an absolute bombshell that has their fan base completely divided and social media absolutely exploding with hot takes, emotional reactions, and serious questions about what the hell is going on with this roster construction. The hottest story in Dodger baseball right now, the story that has everyone talking from the beaches of Santa Monica to the streets of downtown Los Angeles, is that the Dodgers have officially designated for assignment left-handed pitcher Anthony Banda. And this isn't just any routine roster move, folks. This is a guy who won 2 World Series titles with the organization. This is a pitcher who appeared in more games than anyone else on the staff last season. This is a beloved member of the clubhouse who was a card-carrying member of the legendary bullpen Dogs that helped bring a championship back to Chavez Ravine. And now, just like that, he's been DFA'd to make room for the return of catcher Ben Rortvedt, who's coming back to the organization after being claimed off waivers from the Cincinnati Reds. We're going to dive deep into what this move means for the Dodgers, why Anthony Banda became the casualty in this roster chess game, what the return of Benny Biceps means for the backup catcher spot, and most importantly, what the hell this all means for the future of former top prospect Dalton Rushing. Because make no mistake, this isn't just about swapping one player for another. This is about organizational philosophy, about roster construction strategy, about the brutal reality of being a fringe major league player in a win-now organization, and about the difficult decisions that championship caliber teams have to make when every single roster spot carries massive implications. Let's start with the move that has Dodgers fans in their feelings right now, the designation for assignment of Anthony Banda. And look, I get it. The initial reaction for a lot of people is shock, maybe even outrage. How do you DFA a guy who was so important to your success just a few months ago? How do you move on from someone who was literally on the mound during your championship run? How do you say goodbye to a player who epitomized everything you want in a teammate, who grinded his way to the top, who overcame incredible odds to become a 2-time World Series champion? But here's the thing, and this is where we need to separate emotion from cold, hard baseball analysis. If you've been paying attention to this show throughout the entire offseason, if you've been watching our DFA candidate discussions, when the Dodgers were making moves to acquire players like Kyle Tucker, you know that we've been listing Anthony Banda as a potential DFA candidate for weeks now. Not because we don't love the guy, not because we don't respect what he's done for the organization, not because we're rooting against him in any way, shape, or form, but simply because of the roster situation that the Dodgers find themselves in right now. The first and most obvious reason why the Dodgers ended up DFAing Anthony Banda comes down to simple mathematics and organizational depth. The Dodgers have developed a legitimate surplus of left-handed relievers coming out of their bullpen. They're absolutely loaded with southpaw options, and when you have that kind of depth, someone inevitably becomes expendable. It's not personal. It's just the brutal reality of roster construction when you have limited spots and an abundance of talent competing for those positions. Let's break down the left-handed relief situation in the Dodgers organization right now, because it's absolutely stacked. If Tanner Scott has a bounce-back season after the Dodgers invested $72 million in him, that's your premier lefty specialist right there. If Alex Vesia continues to pitch the way he's pitched over the last couple of seasons, being one of the most reliable and dominant left-handed relievers in all of baseball, that's another roster lock. If Jack Dreyer builds on the momentum we saw from him last year where he was inducing soft contact and taking his game to the next level, that's yet another lefty who's ahead of Banda in the pecking order. But here's the kicker, and this might be the most important factor in the entire equation: Justin Wrobleski. Robo looked absolutely nasty at times last season. The velocity was up from where it had been previously. He was trusted in the postseason to go out there in legitimately big spots. The guy made his major league debut in the World Series, which tells you everything you need to know about how much the organization believes in him. When you're getting thrown into the fire in the Fall Classic as your introduction to big league baseball, that means the front office and coaching staff have seen something special in you. And we're not even done with the left-handed pitching depth yet. You've also got Ronan Kopp in the organization as another left-handed pitcher with upside and potential. When you start counting up all these names, when you realize that the Dodgers bullpen has multiple left-handed pitchers who are legitimately ahead of Anthony Banda in the organizational pecking order, it becomes painfully clear why he ended up being the casualty here. It's a numbers game, plain and simple. And unfortunately for Banda, a guy who's been nothing but professional and productive during his time with the Dodgers, he's the one who drew the short straw. Now, before we go any further, let's talk about what Anthony Banda actually did for the Dodgers last season, because his contributions absolutely deserve to be acknowledged and appreciated. From a production standpoint, Banda was incredibly important for the Dodgers during the regular season. He posted a 3.18 ERA in 2025, which was up slightly from his 3.08 ERA in 2024, but the production was relatively similar and still very solid. This was a guy you could rely on to get outs, to eat innings, to be available pretty much whenever you needed him. But here's where things get a bit more complicated, and this is where the advanced metrics start telling a slightly different story than the traditional numbers. One of the big reasons why you didn't see the Dodgers as high on Banda this year as they were in 2024 is that he went about achieving that production in a fundamentally different way. He lost some of that magic with his four-seam fastball. After multiple looks at that pitch throughout the season, it became clear that it was becoming a more vulnerable offering. It was the pitch that hitters were starting to time up, the pitch that was getting hit harder, the pitch that was reducing in effectiveness. Because of that deterioration in his four-seam fastball, Banda had to lean much more heavily on his slider in 2025. And while the slider is a good pitch for him, when you become overly reliant on one pitch, it can have ripple effects throughout your entire arsenal. Leaning more on that slider than the four-seam fastball had a negative impact on his strikeout-to-walk ratio, which is one of the key indicators of pitching effectiveness and sustainability. When your ratios start trending in the wrong direction, that's a red flag that your performance might not be sustainable going forward. Let's dig into some of those underlying numbers because they paint a pretty telling picture. Banda was walking around 12% of the batters he faced, which is higher than you want to see from a reliever who's supposed to be coming in and attacking the strike zone. His strikeout rate sat at 23.2%, which is average at best, pedestrian at worst. For a reliever in today's game where strikeouts are king and you need to miss bats to survive, those numbers are concerning. Another number that jumps out when you look under the hood is his .227 batting average on balls in play. For those who aren't familiar with this metric, a low BABIP often indicates that a pitcher got lucky, that balls were finding gloves more often than they should have based on the quality of contact. Banda's BABIP suggests he benefited from some fortunate bounces and good defensive plays behind him. That's not sustainable long-term. Luck has a way of evening out over time. And if you're relying on good fortune rather than dominant stuff, eventually your numbers are going to regress. But here's the thing, and this is important to acknowledge. Despite all those concerning underlying metrics, the results were still there. Anthony Banda was still extremely pivotal to the Dodgers' success as a bullpen guy that you could trust in various situations. He didn't get injured, which is huge for a relief pitcher. He went out there and posted game after game after game. The Dodgers leaned on him heavily throughout the season, and he answered the bell consistently. That reliability and availability matter tremendously in the marathon that is a baseball season. So why was Banda the casualty if he was still producing acceptable results? The number one reason comes down to roster flexibility, or more specifically, the complete lack thereof with Banda. This is not a guy who has any options remaining. You can't send Anthony Banda down to AAA to work on some things or to create a temporary roster spot. He's out of options, which means he's either on your 25-man roster or he's not in the organization at all. There's no middle ground, no flexibility, no ability to shuffle him up and down based on matchups or need. Compare that to guys like Jack Dreyer and Justin Wrobleski, who still have options available. You can send those guys down if you need a roster spot for a day or two. You can give them regular work in AAA if they're not getting enough innings in the big leagues. You've got flexibility with their roster status. And in today's game where teams are constantly manipulating their 26-man roster to maximize matchups and manage workloads, that flexibility is incredibly valuable. Ronan Kopp also has that same flexibility. When you're comparing players with similar skill sets and production levels, the guy with options is always going to have an advantage over the guy without them. The other factor that can't be ignored is the overall performance profile and the advanced metrics that suggest Banda's production might not be sustainable. Yes, he posted a 3.18 ERA, but his FIP, which stands for Fielding Independent Pitching, and measures what a pitcher's ERA should have been based on the things he can actually control, like strikeouts, walks, and home runs, sat at a much higher 4.52. That's a massive variance, and it suggests that Banda's actual ERA was significantly better than his underlying performance deserved. The year prior, his ERA was 3.08, but his FIP was 3.67, which is still a notable gap, but not as dramatic. Anytime you see high variance between ERA and FIP, anytime fielding independent pitching is significantly higher than the actual earned run average, you start to get concerned. It means the pitcher is probably due for some regression. It means they've been getting bailed out by their defense or by good fortune, and that's not a sustainable formula for success. The expected numbers tell a similar story. Banda's expected stats based on quality of contact and batted ball data were higher than his actual results, which again suggests he got somewhat lucky. None of this is to say that Banda is a bad pitcher or that he can't be effective at the major league level. He absolutely can, and some team is going to claim him off waivers and he's going to help that organization. But these underlying metrics help explain why the Dodgers felt comfortable moving on despite the surface level production looking acceptable. So do I think this was the right move by the Dodgers? Actually, yeah, I do. When you consider all things, when you look at the current state of the bullpen, when you factor in the option situations and the organizational depth at the left-handed reliever position, this move makes sense. Anthony Banda is certainly someone who's going to be able to help teams around Major League Baseball. He's going to get claimed, probably pretty quickly, and he's going to continue his career elsewhere. But the Dodgers put themselves in a tough spot when you have multiple players without options, players you can't send down for flexibility purposes. Ask yourself this question and really think about it honestly. If you had to choose between Jack Dreyer with options remaining or Anthony Banda without any, who are you taking? If it's Justin Wrobleski versus Anthony Banda, who are you choosing when you consider the options situation, the potential for continued development, and the fact that you still feel like the younger guys can continue to grow and improve? Most people are going to take Wrobleski and Dreyer when you factor in the optionality and the upside. And when you look at Alex Vesia, there's no debate that needs to be had there. You're not taking Anthony Banda over Alex Vesia under any circumstances. Vesia has been one of the most dominant left-handed relievers in baseball over the past 2 seasons. Then you've got Tanner Scott, who the Dodgers just signed to a $72 million contract. They have significantly more financial investment in Scott, and you're obviously not going to DFA a guy you just committed that kind of money to. So at the end of the day, Banda is a left-handed pitcher, and the Dodgers had 4 other left-handed pitchers firmly ahead of him in the bullpen hierarchy. Let's talk about the contract situation briefly, because it matters in understanding the full context of this move. The Dodgers tendered Banda a contract at $1.625 million for 2026. With the trends we've discussed, with the underlying metrics suggesting potential regression, with the organizational depth at his position, they decided to go in a different direction rather than commit that salary to a player who might not even be in their optimal bullpen configuration. When you dig even deeper under the hood, more concerning signs emerge. The walk rate climbing to 12.7% is problematic for a reliever. The ground ball rate dropping to just 39.4% of balls in play means he's allowing more fly balls and line drives, which is never what you want to see. His ERA would have been significantly higher if it weren't for that fortunate .227 batting average on balls in play. The 83.1% strand rate, which measures how often runners left on base when a pitcher exits the game, is another indicator that Banda benefited from some breaks and some timely outs. The 4.52 FIP and the 4.39 SIERA, which is another advanced metric for evaluating pitchers, both suggest that his 3.18 ERA was probably not an accurate reflection of his true talent level. And then you had the playoffs, where Banda got legitimately lit up a couple of different times throughout the postseason run. He gave up 6 runs in just 5 2/3 innings pitched in October, which is an ERA over 9. In Game 1 of the World Series, he struggled. Against the Blue Jays, he gave up that massive bomb to Barger that had everyone holding their breath. The bottom line is that the Dodgers are going to be absolutely fine without Anthony Banda on the roster. They have the depth to absorb this loss. They have other options who can step into that role. And I hate the fact that there are fans who are genuinely upset about this move just because it's Anthony Banda and he's a likable guy who's been part of championship teams. Look, I get the emotional attachment. I understand why people are in their feelings about this. But we have to be realistic about the baseball operation side of things. Obviously, Anthony Banda is a great person and a great dude. I genuinely love Anthony Banda as a player and as a human being, but I also love the fact that he's almost certainly going to get picked up by another organization. Some team out there is going to claim him very quickly, probably within the next couple of days. Even though he had some ups and downs in 2025, even though the underlying metrics weren't great, there's enough track record and enough talent there that a team will take a chance on him. If Banda somehow clears waivers, which would honestly be shocking, he would have the option to elect free agency, or he could decide to stay in the Dodgers organization and accept an assignment to the minor leagues. But I genuinely don't think that's going to happen. I think a team is going to claim him before he ever gets close to clearing waivers. He's going to end up on a team, maybe the Minnesota Twins, who could use left-handed bullpen help, maybe the Mets, who are always looking for veteran relievers, maybe any number of teams that need reliable arms. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that he gets claimed. I would be completely and utterly shocked if he makes it through waivers unclaimed. And here's the thing about Anthony Banda that people need to understand. He's used to this kind of career journey. This is part of his path, part of his story. The man has been a baseball nomad, grinding his way through multiple organizations. He started with Arizona in 2017. He was with the Rays from 2018 to 2020. The Mets grabbed him in 2021. He pitched for the Pirates from 2021 to 2022. The Blue Jays had him in 2022. The Yankees brought him in during 2022 as well. The Nationals gave him a shot in 2023. And then finally, the Dodgers from 2024 through 2025 gave him the opportunity to become a two-time World Series champion. This is the life of a journeyman pitcher. This is the reality of being a relief pitcher in Major League Baseball, where roster spots are constantly churning, where teams are always looking for the next hot arm, where one bad stretch can end your tenure with an organization. Banda has navigated this uncertain career path before, and he'll navigate it again. He's resilient, he's adaptable, and he's proven he can succeed in different organizations and different roles. The bottom line is this: Anthony Banda is a card-carrying member of the once a Dodger, always a Dodger bullpen dogs fraternity. 20, 30, 40 years from now, when those bullpen dogs from the 2024 championship team get together for reunions, Anthony Banda is going to be right there alongside Blake Trinan, Brent Honeywell, Alex Vescia, and the rest of that crew. That group of guys was absolutely pivotal to helping the Dodgers win a World Series in 2024. And Anthony Banda, with his Mr. Cartoon mask and his tattoos and the genuine love his teammates had for him, he's going to be remembered fondly by Dodgers fans who appreciate what he contributed during his time in Los Angeles. I wish him nothing but the absolute best in whatever comes next in his career. But I think what ends up ultimately happening here is that he gets claimed off waivers, and that full salary of $1.625 million becomes fully guaranteed by whatever team picks him up. And that's good for Banda because he deserves to continue playing and getting paid at the major league level. I'll never forget a conversation I had with Anthony Banda a couple of years ago during spring training. We were talking about his journey, about his career path, about the ups and downs of being a fringe major league player. And what struck me during that conversation was just how close he had come to walking away from baseball entirely. This wasn't a guy who was thinking, well, at worst, I'll just keep grinding in the minor leagues and eventually I'll get another shot. No. Anthony Banda was legitimately ready to move on to the next chapter of his life, to hang up the cleats and find a new career path. He was at a crossroads where a lot of players find themselves after years of grinding through the minor leagues and bouncing between organizations. The constant uncertainty, the financial instability, the toll on family life, the physical and mental exhaustion of baseball's endless schedule, all of it was weighing on him. He was coaching a high school freshman team at one point, reconnecting with why he fell in love with baseball in the first place by watching these kids experience the joy and frustration and growth that comes with playing the game.